Have you ever wondered what the Aztec Empire was really like before the Spanish arrived? Forget the simple stories you learned in school. We're going back in time to discover a world that was already ancient, complex, and absolutely buzzing with life. Picture this. The year is 1518, in the heart of modern-day Mexico. There's a city that seems to defy gravity, a metropolis floating on water. This is Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, built by the Mexica people on an island in the shimmering Lake Texcoco. It's not just a city, it's an engineering marvel. Imagine vast causeways, like stone highways, connecting the island to the mainland. Canals crisscross the city, acting as liquid streets, with canoes gliding silently, carrying goods and people. And the most ingenious part? The chinampas, or floating gardens. These were man-made islands of rich soil where farmers grew corn, beans, and flowers, creating vibrant green patches that fed a massive population. This was a city literally built from the lake up, a testament to human ingenuity. Life in Tenochtitlan was a sensory overload. The Tlatelolco market was one of the largest in the world at the time. Imagine the sounds, thousands of voices haggling in different languages, the calls of vendors selling everything from brilliant turquoise jewelry and jaguar pelts to exotic feathers and everyday pottery. The smells of fresh tortillas, spicy chiles, and sweet cocoa filled the air. This wasn't just a place to shop. It was the economic heart of the empire, a vibrant hub where goods from hundreds of miles away found a new home. Towering over this bustling scene were the pyramids, especially the Templo Mayor. These weren't just stone structures. They were stairways to the heavens, sacred centers where priests performed rituals to honor the gods and maintain cosmic balance. So how did the Aztecs manage all of this? Their political system was a fascinating web of power. At its core, the empire was a coalition, but Tenochtitlan was the undisputed senior partner. When the Aztecs conquered a new city-state, they didn't always replace its rulers. Instead, they demanded tribute. Twice a year, a steady stream of resources would flow into the capital. Tons of food, luxurious textiles, precious metals, and even warriors for their armies. This tribute system was the lifeblood of the empire, fueling its growth and sustaining its massive population. But it wasn't all about military might. The Aztecs were also skilled diplomats. They forged alliances through strategic marriages, weaving powerful families together. They used negotiation and political maneuvering to keep their vast domain in check. Power, for the Aztecs, was a delicate dance between the sword and the handshake. To truly understand the Aztecs, we have to look at their worldview. For them, the universe was a place of constant struggle between creation and destruction. Their most important god, Huitzilopochtli, was the sun god, who battled the darkness every single night to rise again at dawn. But this cosmic fight required energy, and the Aztecs believed that the most precious energy came from life itself. This is where the concept of sacrifice comes in. It was a deeply held religious belief that offering life to the gods was necessary to nourish the sun, ensure the rain would fall, the corn would grow, and the world would continue. While it seems brutal to us today, for the Aztecs, it was a sacred duty, a way to participate in the universe's eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. But beneath the surface of this powerful and organized empire, there were cracks. Not everyone was happy to be under Aztec rule. The constant demand for tribute created resentment among the conquered peoples. Powerful rival states, like the fierce Tlaxcalans, were never fully subdued and remained bitter enemies, constantly clashing with Aztec forces in so-called flower wars, ritual battles designed to capture warriors for sacrifice. These simmering rivalries created a network of internal enemies who were just waiting for an opportunity, for a moment of weakness. The Aztec Empire, for all its grandeur and power, was a fragile construction held together by a combination of fear and force. It was a world teetering on a knife's edge, unaware that a storm was gathering far across the ocean. And that brings us to the year 1519, a pivotal year. On the coast of this vast land, strange ships with towering sails appeared, carrying men with pale skin and weapons of fire and steel. Their arrival was a spark that would land in a political powder keg, setting off a chain of events that would change this world forever. But to understand the conquest, we first had to understand the world that was about to be conquered. Imagine the scene. November 1519. Silhouettes of Spanish ships cut through the morning mist off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Aboard one of them is Hernán Cortés, a man whose ambition was as vast as the ocean he had just crossed. He wasn't just bringing steel, horses, and a burning desire for gold. His most powerful weapons were far more subtle, alliances and deception. As Cortés and his men pushed inland, they didn't just charge blindly toward the heart of the Aztec Empire. That would have been suicide. Instead, he was a master strategist. He listened, he learned, and he forged alliances. His most crucial partnership was with the Tlaxcalans. For generations, they had fiercely resisted Aztec rule, and in these strange, bearded men from across the sea, they saw a chance to finally break free. The Tlaxcalans provided thousands of warriors, vital supplies, and priceless knowledge about the terrain and their common enemy. With a powerful native army at his back, Cortés continued his advance. He sent messengers ahead, not with threats, but with gifts and promises of peace. Word of these pale-skinned gods spread like wildfire, carried on the wings of rumor and fear. In the bustling markets of the magnificent Aztec capital, Tenochtitlán, people whispered about newcomers who wielded fire and rode upon giant deer-like beasts. The great Aztec Emperor, Moctezuma II, found himself caught in an impossible situation. Was this the return of a prophesied god, or the arrival of a deadly new enemy? Should he attack them head-on and risk total war, or welcome them and risk showing weakness? He chose a path of cautious diplomacy. In a decision that would change the course of history, Moctezuma invited Cortés and his entire entourage into the heart of his empire. He opened the gates to Tenochtitlan. The day the Spaniards entered was a spectacle of breathtaking beauty. The city was an island metropolis, a marvel of engineering with floating gardens, towering temples, and intricate canals filled with canoes. The Spanish soldiers, many of whom were simple men from rural Spain, were utterly stunned. They had never seen anything like it. It was like walking into a dream. But beneath the dazzling splendor, a current of tension pulsed. This was not a friendly visit. It was a fragile standoff. Once inside the city's walls, Cortés' true intentions began to surface. He and his men swiftly took Moctezuma hostage, placing him under house arrest within his own palace. They hoped to rule the empire through a puppet emperor. But the Aztec nobility and warrior classes were not so easily subdued. Whispers of resistance grew into plots. While some wondered if the Spaniards were divine, others saw them for what they were, invaders. Blades were sharpened in the shadows. But another, more terrifying enemy had entered the city with the Spanish, an invisible one, smallpox. The people of the Americas had no immunity to European diseases. The virus swept through Tenochtitlan with devastating speed. Entire families were wiped out. The city's vibrant life began to quiet as the sickness spread, creating chaos and weakening the Aztecs' ability to resist. Despite the plague, the Aztecs fought back. They launched ambushes and uprisings, pushing the Spaniards to the brink. But Cortés had a technological edge with firearms and steel armor. His cavalry terrified Aztec warriors who had never encountered horses in battle. More importantly, the political landscape was fracturing. Seeing the emperor weakened, many of the states that paid tribute to the Aztecs saw their own opportunity and switched their allegiance to the Spanish. Months turned into a grueling struggle for control. The initial welcome had soured into a bitter occupation. With his new native allies, Cortés laid siege to the great city, cutting off the causeways that supplied its food and fresh water. The stage was now set for the final tragic act. Tenochtitlan, the jewel of the Aztec world, was surrounded, starving and ravaged by disease. The walls were closing in, and one of the greatest civilizations in the Americas was about to face its darkest hour. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying back 5 centuries to witness the final, dramatic days of one of the world's most magnificent empires, the Aztecs. By early 1521, the great city of Tenochtitlan, a marvel of engineering floating on a lake, was caught in a death grip. The Spanish conquistadors and their tens of thousands of indigenous allies had sealed it off completely. They controlled the lake, cut the causeways, and choked off the city's water supply. What was once a vibrant metropolis, a city of canals and gardens, had become a trap. Inside the city walls, the situation grew desperate. Without food, fresh water, or a moment's rest, the defenders were pushed beyond the limits of human endurance. Yet they fought on. In the narrow streets, brutal close-quarters combat became a daily reality. Aztec warriors, armed with obsidian-edged clubs and spears, clashed violently with Spanish steel swords, crossbows, and firearms. The air grew thick with smoke as fires consumed entire neighborhoods, and buildings crumbled into rubble. The once bustling canals were clogged with the dead. One by one, the city's districts fell silent. Where vibrant markets once hummed with life, only smoldering ruins remained. The grand temples, stained and scarred, stood as silent witnesses to the carnage. Leading the last vestiges of resistance was the final Aztec emperor, the young and courageous Cuauhtémoc. He moved relentlessly from one stronghold to another, trying to rally his starving, exhausted people. But with each passing day, his forces dwindled. A devastating combination of disease, starvation, and desertion was eroding the city's will to fight. Then came August 13th, 1521, the final assault. The Spanish forces smashed through the last defenses around the sacred temple precinct. Atop the Great Pyramid, where Aztec priests once made offerings to their gods, the Spanish flag was raised and a cross was erected. Tenochtitlan had fallen. The Aztec Empire, which had dominated the region for a century, was no more. But the fall of a city is not the end of a story. On the ashes of Tenochtitlan, a new world began to form. The Spanish built Mexico City directly on top of the ruins, often using stones from dismantled pyramids to construct their own cathedrals. Yet, while Spanish rule was imposed, the spirit of the indigenous people was never completely extinguished. Their traditions, languages, and beliefs survived, sometimes in secret, sometimes blending with new customs to create the unique culture we see in Mexico today. The collapse of the Aztec Empire wasn't just a military conquest. It was a perfect storm of superior weaponry, devastating European diseases, crucial local alliances, and internal fractures. The empire that once dazzled the world was gone, but its legacy endures in ancient texts and oral traditions, in the very blood of the people, and in the silent echoes that still whisper from the stones of Mexico City. Have you ever stood on the ruins of a once mighty empire and wondered, how could something so powerful just ... vanish? Today we journey back 5 centuries, to the heart of Mesoamerica, to witness the dramatic fall of the Aztec Empire. This isn't just a story of conquest. It's a complex saga of prophecy, disease, and a clash of worlds so profound it still echoes today. Picture this. The year is 1519, the Aztec capital. Tenochtitlan is a marvel of engineering, a floating metropolis larger than any European city of its time. Canals served as streets, massive pyramids pierced the sky, and bustling markets overflowed with goods from across the empire. At its helm was Moctezuma II, a ruler presiding over millions. The Aztecs were at the zenith of their power, but strange omens had begun to appear, a comet blazing across the sky, the temple of Huitzilopochtli spontaneously catching fire, a wailing woman heard in the night. The empire was uneasy, as if holding its breath. Into this world of prophecy and power sailed Hernán Cortés and his small band of conquistadors. They were vastly outnumbered, but they brought with them unseen, terrifying weapons, steel swords, crossbows, cannons, and horses, animals the Aztecs had never seen. Yet their most devastating weapon was invisible: smallpox. The arrival of the Spanish coincided with Aztec prophecies of the return of the god Quetzalcoatl. Was Cortés a god, a man? This uncertainty paralyzed Moctezuma and the Aztec leadership, creating a window of opportunity for the Spanish. Initial encounters were a mix of cautious diplomacy and suspicion. The Spanish were awestruck by Tenochtitlán's grandeur, while the Aztecs were wary of these strange visitors. But diplomacy soon shattered. The Spanish lust for gold and their attempts to impose Christianity led to rising tensions. A massacre of Aztec nobles by Cortés' men during a religious festival ignited the city. The people of Tenochtitlan rose up, driving the Spanish out in a bloody retreat known as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. But Cortés was relentless. He regrouped, forging alliances with rival city-states who had long resented Aztec rule. The Tlaxcalans, in particular, provided thousands of warriors, turning a Spanish invasion into a massive indigenous civil war. Meanwhile, smallpox, a disease to which the native population had no immunity, swept through the city, decimating its defenders far more effectively than any sword. After a brutal 75-day siege that cut off food and water, the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan fell in August of 1521. The once unconquerable Aztec Empire was no more. So, what can we glean from the fall of the Aztecs? The fragility of empires, the power of ideas and beliefs, the unpredictable force of disease, but most importantly, the endurance of culture. Even today in modern Mexico, you hear Nahuatl words woven into Spanish. You taste recipes using maize prepared in ways passed down through generations. You see festivals and traditions tied to ancient cycles. The past is not dead. It breathes in the present. In every stone of Mexico City, in every whispered legend, the Aztec legacy persists. Thank you for walking these historic paths with me. If you felt the echoes of these lost voices or glimpsed the shadows of what was, let me know in the comments which civilization you'd like us to visit next. And if you enjoy journeying into the past, please subscribe for more stories. Until next time, stay curious. Soft, measured, and slightly mysterious tone, night after night, we drift between the past and the present, listening for echoes of lives long ended. Tonight's journey will take us into the heart of a civilization that rose on water, shone with splendor, and then plunged into collapse. This is the story of the Aztec Empire, a tapestry of power, faith, betrayal, and transformation. Over the next chapters, we will walk the canals of Tenochtitlan, hear the drums of ritual sacrifice, and watch the slow unraveling of an empire. Let us begin in the mists of Lake Texcoco, where a city on water would challenge the fate of worlds. Imagine a prophecy, an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a serpent. This was the divine sign the wandering Mexica people had been searching for. Here, in the heart of a vast lake, they would build their home. Tenochtitlan, the Venice of the New World, began not with grand stone, but with Chinampas floating gardens built from mud and reeds. These ingenious plots of land became the foundation of a city and the breadbasket of an empire. On these fertile islands, they cultivated maize, beans, and squash, feeding a population that would soon swell into the hundreds of thousands. This city on water wasn't just a marvel of engineering, it was a statement of power. A complex network of canals served as its streets, plied by thousands of canoes carrying goods from across Mesoamerica. At its center rose the Templo Mayor, a massive twin pyramid dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, and Tlaloc, the god of rain and agriculture. This sacred precinct was the spiritual and political heart of the Aztec world, a place where the earthly and divine realms converged. Life in Tenochtitlan was a vibrant spectacle, from the bustling Tlatelolco market, one of the largest in the world, to the solemn rituals that maintained cosmic balance. The Aztec Empire, known as the Triple Alliance, wasn't a monolith. It was a coalition formed by 3 city-states, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Zacapan. While they shared power, Tenochtitlan quickly emerged as the dominant force. Through a combination of strategic alliances, political marriages, and relentless military campaigns, the Aztecs extended their influence from the Gulf Coast to the Pacific Ocean. They were masters of psychological warfare. Their fearsome jaguar and eagle warriors, adorned in spectacular regalia, struck terror into the hearts of their enemies. Conquered city-states weren't typically absorbed, but were forced to pay tribute, a steady flow of goods like turquoise, cacao, textiles, and precious feathers that enriched the capital and fueled its insatiable growth. But this system of tribute and dominance fostered deep resentment among the subjugated peoples. The Aztec worldview demanded balance, and this balance often required appeasing the gods through human sacrifice. While a deeply spiritual practice for the Aztecs, it was a brutal reality for their captives and a powerful tool of intimidation. The seeds of rebellion were sown long before the first European ships appeared on the horizon. This internal fragility, this network of simmering hatreds, would become the empire's fatal weakness. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only topple a dynasty but shatter an entire world. In 1519, the sails of Hernán Cortés appeared on the horizon, mistaken by some for the prophesied return of the god Quetzalcoatl. This arrival marked the beginning of the end. But the fall of the Aztec Empire wasn't a simple story of conquest. It was a complex storm of disease, technology, and, crucially, alliances. Cortés and his small band of conquistadors would have been no match for the might of the Aztecs alone. Their greatest weapon was the simmering resentment of the empire's subjects, like the Tlaxcalans who saw the Spanish as a means to break free from Aztec domination. The encounter between Emperor Moctezuma II and Cortés is one of history's most dramatic turning points. Initial diplomacy soon gave way to suspicion and violence, culminating in the tragic Noche Triste, or Night of Sorrows, where the Spanish were driven from Tenochtitlan with heavy losses, but they would return. A devastating smallpox epidemic, to which the native population had no immunity, swept through the city, decimating its defenders. Weakened by disease and besieged by a massive army of Spanish soldiers and their indigenous allies, the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan fell in August of 1521 after a brutal months-long siege. The fall of Tenochtitlan was more than the collapse of an empire. It was the end of an era. The great temples were torn down, their stones used to build a new Spanish capital, Mexico City. The canals were filled in, and an ancient way of life was systematically dismantled. Yet the story of the Aztecs did not end in the rubble. Their language, Nahuatl, is still spoken. Their agricultural innovations continue to inspire. Their art, their philosophy, and their unconquerable spirit echo through the centuries, a testament to a civilization that, for a brief, dazzling moment, built a world upon the water.
And just like that, another journey comes to a close. Thanks for vibing with me today. If this video sparked something in you, hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. For more content like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next adventure together. Don't forget, this is more than just a channel. It's a community. You can also connect with me on my other socials, linked in the description.